Africa Prime, brought to you by Jamison Select Reserve.
Welcome to this special edition of Africa Prime, where we are in the office of Minister Malusi Gigaba. It's the Minister of Public Enterprises, and it's exactly 1 year since he was appointed minister after having served since 2004 as the Deputy Minister of Home Affairs. Tonight, we're talking to him about his department and what he has seen 1 year on. Minister, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Perfect timing for us, Minister. 1 year on, what have you found out inside state-owned enterprises that you have fixed that we can look forward to an improved operating working environment?
I think the most urgent challenge we faced when we assumed office was the stabilization of corporate governance, of the leadership of some of our key state-owned entities. That included Transnet, it included supporting the stabilization of ESCOM, and ensuring that our entities have both functioning boards as well as CEOs. In Transnet in particular, there had been an acting CEO for quite a long time, group CEO, and the board was quite depleted, and we needed to appoint a new board so that you would have the full complement of the board. And when we gave the new board a mandate in 3 months to ensure that there is a group CEO, which they complied with. We also then had to continue to support all our state-owned entities to ensure that they were compliant with corporate governance. But it was also at a critical time in South Africa because government had just adopted the new growth path. Now, the new growth path required that we try and align the corporate and national interests of our entities. As you know, in a corporate environment, that could always cause upheavals.
Sure.
We needed to get our boards to think along the lines of the new growth path, to understand the vision, the mission, the mandate of government, and to align the corporate plans to those national interests. And we had several meetings with the chairpersons and CEOs where we tried to do exactly that.
Right.
I am comfortable now that we've overall succeeded. If you look at some of the progress we've made with regard to the investment plans, the skills development plans, and other plans that are being carried out by these state-owned enterprises. But we've also, during the course of the last 12 months, faced a few corporate and leadership challenges in some of our entities, such as Broadband Infraco, which is responsible for long-distance broadband connectivity.
Yes.
We've had to assist that entity to try and stabilize because it faced internal corporate governance challenges.
Sure.
So there's been a number of issues, and over these 12 months, we've had to continue to pay attention to the balance sheet of some of these entities.
Right.
SAA, even though it recorded a profit over the last financial year, it still is not fully out of the woods. South African Express also needs attention. Dinel needs a lot of attention from the shareholder representative. And so it's been an interesting year of dealing with both the internal corporate issues as well as addressing the national interests, ensuring that there is alignment between the two, and these entities can function along the vision of government.
Yeah, that line is difficult to straddle, isn't it? Maybe let's broaden the conversation and talk about yes, you have been in there 1 year and you have done this work now, but we are also talking about a very disparate group of entities, isn't it, when we talk about state-owned enterprises? I mean, you were talking to me earlier and you told me actually there are probably more than 500 state-owned enterprises. Do we need that many? And how do we ensure that with that large number, we make them all functional and also fully accountable to the taxpayer through your office?
Part of the problem that the new administration in 1994 was faced with was that there had been an incoherent approach to state-owned enterprises. But at the same time, some of the key infrastructure-related state-owned enterprises had been earmarked for privatization by the previous government of the Nationalist Party.
Right.
Now, when the new administration came in, given the urgent challenges before it, it didn't have much time to consolidate the whole framework of state-owned enterprises,
right,
so that it establishes, among others, a standard governance governance model. It identifies a mandate by creating a legislation, right, that provides a mandate for the Department of Public Enterprises and the state-owned enterprises.
Right.
So what you ended up having over the last 17 years were state-owned enterprises existing in different entities, some at national government, straddled across departments, some at provincial governments,
right,
and some at local governments. The president in 2009 then established a presidential review committee which would report to him,
right,
so that it doesn't face constraints of ministerial turf battles.
Right.
It accounts to the president. We are all obliged to provide assistance to it so that it does its work and provides clarity. One, as to how many state-owned enterprises.
I was going to ask you that question.
Two, about the shareholder governance model. Three, about the legislative, the mandating framework for these state-owned enterprises. And four, about where are they going to be situated.
Right.
Because at the present moment, you have 8 state-owned enterprises in the portfolio of our Department of Public Enterprises.
Right.
But then this means you have over 400 other state-owned enterprises under anybody else's purview. Now, you have to decide what is the shareholder governance model you are going to prefer. Are you going to shut down the Department of Public Enterprises so that Transnet, SAA and South African Express go to the Department of Transport, Eskom goes to the Department of Energy?
Right.
Or are you going to consolidate the Department of Public Enterprises so that some of the public enterprises which might be existing in other departments, which are most probably commercial public enterprises, would then be brought into the department? And then you say that the approach you will take is that a state-owned enterprise shall not belong or shall not be shareholder managed by a department responsible for policy formulation. That might help in separating the roles to ensure that the department which formulates policy does not become responsible for regulations and implementation. Now, that's the type of discussion and framework.
So where do we get the results of those findings?
We hope that by 2012 we should get the preliminary proposals out, so that we begin to engage with them, all of us together as government, and find a model that's going to work for our country.
It's an important question because part of the debate that's ongoing now with the coming of the new growth plan and the role of the state in the economy and the role of the state-owned enterprises in the side of the economy has been to try and determine what kind of a role we see entities such as Eskom, such as Transnet playing, and also what kind of model they are supposed to be following. Now, from where you sit and where we are now, how do we make Eskom and Transnet and SAA accountable and effective within the current framework?
The critical thing is to standardize your shareholder governance.
Right. Right now they go to Parliament to present the annual reports, isn't it?
Well, they first present to the shareholder.
To you?
Yes.
Okay.
They have to present to me
okay.
at the annual general meeting.
Right.
I have to adopt the annual report, including the financial statements, as the shareholder. I have to take resolutions as is required of the corporate governance framework on a number of things, including the appointment of non-executive directors,
right.
the issues of remuneration, a whole range of areas. I think the biggest part of the agenda is always the annual report and the financial statements, because
right.
that's where, as the shareholder, you must scrutinize the organization, whether it's still pursuing the mandate for which it had been established.
Sure.
But they are also required to go to Parliament because they are state-owned enterprises, and Parliament exercises oversight responsibility over the work of government.
What's your preferred model? Would it work better if these are reported directly to you and to you alone, or there's this shared responsibility with Parliament? How do we work out and make them more effective?
No, I think the model that we've been pursuing so far hasn't created unnecessary tensions. It really hasn't created any contradictions.
But who fires the CEO if he's not performing?
The CEO is fired by the minister.
Not Parliament?
No. It's the minister who fires the CEO.
Okay.
It's the minister who fires the board. In actual fact, it's the board that fires the CEO.
Right.
And the minister fires the board and appoints the board.
Okay.
But obviously the minister is not the shareholder. The minister is the shareholder representative. You are representing government, which means that in the exercise of your duties as the minister,
right.
you act in concurrence and with the approval of cabinet.
Is there a better model?
I think there is no better model. I think this model works for our democracy. It is sufficient for us. We've perfected it. Obviously, you can always improve on it.
Sure.
But so far, it's working very well, because in that case, you ensure that cabinet, as a collective, can provide you with the collective wisdom,
right,
based on its experience and diversity of views, so that you are able to exercise. Cabinet doesn't interfere in the daily exercise of your functions.
Sure.
But it expects that when you appoint a CEO, when the board appoints a CEO, you must bring that to cabinet. When the new board is appointed, you must bring that to cabinet. Each chairperson plus CEO meet with the minister once in 2 months to allow for a regular, more rigorous interaction on strategic issues affecting the state-owned enterprises, so that you don't get a situation whereby the minister gets surprised maybe when a crisis hits the public sphere, and the minister says, I was not informed.
And the lights go out, and we certainly will
Absolutely.
be knocking on your door, and as well as knocking at Eskom's door. You're watching Africa Prime. We are talking to the Minister of Public Enterprises, Minister Malusi Gigaba. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk to him about where he's come from. Now, he is a former youth leader, and as everybody knows, youth issues have been a big debate in South Africa of late. We're going to be sounding him out on what he thinks ought to be done.